days when you can't tell nobody what you've been going through. All that weight, all that pressure, and you've been suffering in silence. I hear you.
Daily battles in my mind. Need your light, I'm walking blind. I'm a soldier, try not to lose, trying to step, but I can't move. Daily battles in my mind.
Moving on to the next area, one of the big topics that young people are dealing with is dating, of course. So you're this young, talented athlete. You're in the best shape of your life. Male or female. Everyone's in your face. You're on television. You're in magazines, newspapers, so on and so forth. So how does a person like that, who is also traveling, you're not with your family so much, you don't have your church people at your church watching you and seeing what's going on if you get out of line to correct you as much. So how does a person like that navigate the dating game and stay in their Christianity when they're being bombarded by so many different people?
That's a really, really good question. I think we've said this many times before. We're of the school of thought that dating is for marriage. So if I'm not really thinking about getting married right now, I'm not in a place to get married, it's not on my radar, then I should not be dating. Mm-hmm. And so that right there will cut all kinds of temptation. If this is not wife material, this is not husband material, I'm not even ready to court somebody right now, then the answer is always no. Can I have your number? No. Can we go out for coffee? No. Can I go over here? No. The answer is just no. It's easy. It's a default. But if the Lord is highlighting someone to you and you believe, you know what, this is my season, I actually do want a spouse, I think I'm ready to have someone for life, then you allow the Holy Spirit to lead you to that individual, and then you have to create boundaries while you date. Boundaries are huge. If you don't have boundaries, it's the same thing with identity. If you don't have boundaries, then you just do anything. So I know for us, we didn't date. He was actually my first boyfriend because I was, no. Can I take you out? No. Can I go? No. I was just no. And finally, the Lord told me to be nice to him. He was approaching me and God told me to give him my number, which I was like, give him what? Because I was just so used to telling guys no. And we got on the phone. The first conversation was the best phone combo I had ever had in my life. It was like 3 hours long. It was as if we had known each other. And then I got off the phone and of course I prayed. So that's huge. A lot of times people pick people on their own. We have a lot in common or I find them attractive, but what does God have to say about it? So I talked to God about him. He talked to God about me. And then we were just honest with each other about our boundaries. I let him know, hey, I'm a virgin and I'm planning on staying a virgin until I'm married. And he was honest with me. Hey, God told me not to touch a woman, right? Not to do anything. And I've been celibate. I think at that point you had been celibate for like 5 years or something when we started dating. And so we knew that up front, like, okay, we're serious about God and I don't want to lead you into temptation. And he didn't want to lead me into temptation. And those conversations have to be had. We also had to talk about each other's past, things, and do you want to walk away now that you know about my past? A lot of times people try to just cover all that up and put their best face forward. But if your best face isn't real and authentic, then you have someone falling in love with a person that you really are not. And you can't live up to that. We can't be so afraid of being alone that we just put up a facade and pretend to be someone we're not so that we can attract the person we think we want. It's not gonna work.
Yeah, I think also, just like an athlete, I've yet to meet an athlete that just wants to be just a regular athlete like everybody else. Most athletes want to be extraordinary. They want to be the best at what they do. And I really feel like you got to have that same mentality when it comes to when you decide to invite someone into your life. I think a lot of times we can make the mistake of dragging people through our developmental stages, inviting someone into a chaotic situation. One of the first things that God did with Adam in the Garden of Eden is he brought order. He created a space that was not only habitable for Adam, but also one that he could invite Eve into. The first title ever given to Eve was not a wife, but a helpmeet. It was help that was suitable and adaptable for Adam. And I just think there are certain developmental stages we go through as men, certain developmental stages that that women go through as well. And I think as a man, one thing that was very important to me before we started dating is I wanted to make sure that I was inviting this young lady that I was interested in into an environment that she could actually thrive in, one that was prepared and ready for her to come. And I had to make sure I was at a certain place just as a young man, that I was ready for the responsibility, depending on how long we decided to date, to become the head of that relationship. And so I just think, I encourage, if anything, I think there are certain decisions that we need to make as single people before we invite people into our life. Making the tough decisions before we're in a place where we want to invite someone into a situation and now we've got to deal with temptation. Right. I had already established certain boundaries in my life before my wife came in, and she had done the same. Mm-hmm. That made it a lot easier for us when we decided to date as a couple, because we already had certain convictions and certain values. And it wasn't real hard for us to come into agreement about what we were going to do going forward as a couple. And I just think that the kingdom way most times is we are always going to prove ourselves at one level to determine whether or not we are ready to move on to the next level. So successful singles produce successful marriages, and most times successful marriages go on to raise successful kids.
I'm glad you all touched on that, because as you all were talking, I was thinking one of the big differences is when you're an athlete, especially if you're an elite one, you go to college or you play professionally. Now all of those people that you're totally attracted to, the models, the entertainers, those are people, they're your peers now. So it's not like they're out of your reach. All the most beautiful people in the world will be approaching you and being around you. So from what you all are saying, is basically the preparation before you even come into that environment is essential. But for the people who are not prepared in that way, how do they corral themselves and get on the straight and narrow?
Proverbs tells us that wealth makes many friends. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that athletes have to remember is that your talent and your gifting is going to bring a lot of people into your life. Some people with the right motives, and some people with the wrong motives. Mm-hmm. And I think when it comes to relationships, although society and life and technology is moving at a very fast pace, you really can't rush the pace that relationships need to move at in order to garner trust, in order to develop something that will be lasting and something of value long term. It just takes time to prove that you can trust people, to prove that they are in your life for all the right reasons. And I just think we have to make sure whenever we go through life that we're taking our time, we're allowing God to direct our steps. Proverbs tells us desire without knowledge is not good, and anyone that is overly hasty is going to sin and miss the mark. Mm-hmm. So it's when we get in a rush that I think we end up making decisions that come back to bite us later on. The kingdom is still seed, time, and harvest. We plant the seed, we give it time, and it produces harvest. And I think when we try to circumvent that process and move a whole lot faster, moving from seed immediately to harvest, then that's when we become over hasty and we begin to miss sometimes what things are really all about.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
You were going to
No, I think that's spot on. That's really good.
One of the questions, a good friend of mine just asked me that because a few days ago at a basketball game, how do you deal with all the attention from the opposite sex when you're out here and you're visible like this? But one of the questions that really came about was, and I think you two are the perfect ones to ask, is how do you remain celibate? What are those boundaries that you're talking about? What sort of boundaries does someone have to have so that they continue to be celibate until marriage?
So prior to dating, I was saying it earlier, we weren't dating, we weren't flirting, there has to be internal conversations you have with yourself. So I noticed as a teenager that I had a natural flirtatious nature. And so even if I wasn't interested in a guy, and now that I know my love language, it is touch. So I would be talking to a guy and I would touch and But for me, I didn't mean anything. But the guy is thinking, oh, she likes me because she can't keep her hands off me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had to learn. I had to literally, while I'm talking to people, in my head, I had to say things like, don't touch him. Right? Or you've been talking to him long enough, move on, end the conversation. And so we have to have our own self-checks even before we invite someone into our life to date, where we're already, managing those things. So I didn't talk to a guy so long that my emotions are getting all attached. Right. It was very casual. I'm not talking about my grandma, my trauma from childhood, nothing that's gonna really open me up to fall in love with this guy until I know this is the guy that the Lord is letting me know is safe for me, right? So we have to guard ourselves. Then once we think, okay, I believe this is someone who God does want me to be serious about, and we start to open ourselves up, we have to pace it, right? So again, we weren't talking about childhood trauma the first time on the phone.
Right.
We dated for almost 4 full years. So we paced that divulging of intimate information, because the more intimate you get with the information, the faster that relationship is gonna go. The other thing is, he helped me in the very beginning, and I really appreciate this, and men can do this, can set the pace for the relationship, set the expectations. You have to understand that girl in particular, the girlfriends are, ooh girl, he gonna propose at your birthday. He gonna propose at Christmas. They did that to me all the time. But my husband and I, we were dating early on. He said, now listen, I really do believe we're dating for the purpose of marriage, but I don't see myself getting married within the next 2 years. So I already knew we're gonna date for at least 2 years before he pops the question. Yeah. Right. So I wasn't getting all impatient and antsy. Right. Yeah. And so I think that's important, to just have those real, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, if they're like, in 5 years, I see myself being married, well, then you already know. Right. So you have to have those real conversations. Once we establish a relationship, we literally wrote our boundaries in writing. You don't have to do this, but when to look at it on paper, it just really solidifies, okay, we're really doing this thing. So we had on there, he wouldn't touch me in any inappropriate way, in any inappropriate zone, and I wouldn't do that to him either. We set curfews for ourselves. So we're not gonna be, alone in an apartment at 3 a.m. I forgot what our time was. It might have been 11 p.m. Like, if we're on a date, we're gonna end this date. It's getting too late. Why? Because the freaks come on at night. Come on, let's just be realistic. Come on. Let's just be real. I think sometimes we just tempt our own selves. I'm grown. Well, just because you're grown don't mean your hormones aren't there. They're still there. Right. So you have to set yourself up for success. No dim lighting. You got this soft music playing and it's late. Come on. So there's certain things we just didn't do. We were never alone in an apartment together or a house together. There was always, my mom was there upstairs, or his mom was in the other room. So there's just certain things we're not going to do. And we know our mama's in the other room, right? If we had to meet somewhere in a car, we drove separately, just set yourself up for success. We weren't taking out of town trips, just he and I together. Right. You're not setting yourself up for success. Right. So that would be my advice. Set realistic boundaries that you can actually meet. Now, as the relationship progressed, we were super strict in the beginning, like no holding hands, like once, okay, I can trust I'm not about to damage my whole relationship, my 2 years in with you because we held hands. So that kind of relaxed, right? But when we got closer to that wedding date, I warned people, once you're engaged, you thought it was hard before you were engaged. Oh my goodness. Yeah. He would call me and be like, I'm coming over, and I'd be like, no, you're not today. Be honest with yourself, right? I had to be honest with him. This is not, if you come over today, we're gonna mess up everything we done did. Yeah. So, okay, be honest, telling yourself, like, you know what, there were times he came over and I saw his eyes about to pop out of his head because of the outfit I had on. I went and changed. Yeah. I'm like, I'm gonna change my outfit because you aren't handling it right now. Or if he had on a certain cologne, I'm like, you can't ever wear that again until we're married. Like, don't. That scent, I don't know what it's doing to me, but you cannot put that on. And just tell on yourself and be honest. A lot of times I think people fall into temptation because they lie to themselves. I can handle it. No, you cannot.
Right. Yeah. I think particularly because we're talking to athletes as well. Yeah. In Proverbs, it admonishes us to drink water out of our own cistern, running water out of our own well. And it talks about, not allowing our, I might not say it 100% correctly, but it says something along the lines of not allowing our I guess like our rivers to be dispersed in the streets. And when you look into the text, what it's saying is basically it's just not good to have, we could say this way, children coming from many different directions. Right. And I just think, when you think about athletes, one of the things that we see happening with a lot of athletes nowadays is you got a lot of people, whether it's the opposite sex or whatever, trying to get into someone's life for the purpose of locking them down for the rest of their life. Right. And I just think we ought to prepare now for what it is that we want in the future. And I know for us, removing the physical element allowed us to really take a lot of time to get to know each other. So when it came time for us to get married, I wasn't just marrying this woman that I was intrigued with. I was marrying someone that I considered a friend. And so once you get into the marriage, now you can do things that friends are able to do. We were able to talk about the stuff that we were going through as a married couple, able to talk about sex and able to talk about the things that would help will help our marriage to develop and grow to where we desired for it to be. And that's because the need to perform was no longer there. Right. Now I'm marrying my friend and we're just having real dialogue and conversation about what's necessary in order for us to have a great marriage later on. And I think the other side, another thing too, is to make sure you play the long game. The greatest thing about making that decision to be celibate and to refrain from the physical activity in the beginning stages of our relationship is I felt, for me, it trained me on how to be faithful to one woman. We've been fortunate, in the fact that we've been together now for 24 years we've been together, and have never crossed the line and never had an adulterous affair. And I really believe that during that time, God was training me on that I could be faithful to one woman for the rest of my life. And my prayer is that that's exactly what will happen. But the blessing is that we're able to be honest even today. The same way we were real with each other while we were dating, we're still real with each other now. If there's someone that I feel is attractive or someone she feels is attractive, we tell each other. We let each other know that, listen, when I'm around this person, it's pretty intense. I need you to watch me. I just want to make myself accountable. And because that accountability was established in the early stages, it's something that's continuing on in our marriage today. And the greatest blessing is what we can give to our kids. It's the story that we tell our kids now about how mom and dad dated. And if we did it, then we think you guys can do it too.
That's an awesome point. Because it's like, I never drank or smoked in my life, but I never see my parents do it either. So it's easy.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Those are all great points. As y'all were speaking about everything, the areas that would make a lot of athletes falter is, once again, you're traveling a lot. So, for instance, I play overseas. I sign a contract. I leave the country for 9 to 10 months. Okay, and so it's not like here in the States where you sign a professional contract, you play for that team for 4 or 5 years. So you actually have the time to get to know the person. So now you move into another area in the world, or you can move to the other side of the country or whatever, and your contract might not be that long. And if you consistently have to do that, what happens to a lot of athletes is they get the loneliness. They don't have the time to get to know the person. So you're moving, okay, well now I play good, I got to get a bigger contract in this other place. Now I got a bigger contract, oh, I didn't have a good year, I got to go to another place. So you have this time frame is not as natural. So you don't have the luxury of getting to know a person like y'all grew up in the same neighborhood, y'all went to the same high school, college, so on and so forth. And then you're also combating cultures. So you might meet someone that you're interested in, but they practice something else, or you don't really totally understand the culture until you live there for a couple of years. So so for people in this type of situation, how can they navigate it?
In like an interpersonal, like a dating type relationship?
Yeah, like they still want to get married. Okay. They still want to do these things, but their options are different. But you're probably only going to home for a couple months.
I think, thank goodness we have technology now. I think that will help for sure, because you can FaceTime with a person, you can Instagram them, you can, like when we started dating, there was no social media. So, and we were long distance for most of our relationship. Out of that, what was it, 4 years and 11 months we were together? I think it was
9 months.
Yeah, only 9 months of our long relationship were we in the same state and in vicinity to be able to just quickly drive to see the other person. All the rest of the time we were in different states. He was in Ohio, he was in Arizona, I was in Michigan. And even without social media, we were able to still keep it together as long as we had a lot of phone time. And yeah, we were buying phone cards left and right. It was so expensive. But anyway, phone time, we were writing each other letters. I was mailing pictures because again, there's no social media. He was like, can you send me a picture? My gosh, it's been months. I haven't seen you, so we were mailing. So I just think you have to put in the effort because you are sowing seeds into your future relationship with this person. And so you've got to make that time. And honestly, I think being long distance blessed our relationship because it forced us to talk. I think a lot of times people, they're in the room with each other, but they're not really talking.
Right.
They're watching a movie. They're playing a board game. They're doing an activity.
Or the boundary can be broken.
Yeah, the boundaries being broken. Or there are other people with them in the room, so they're really not having these intimate conversations versus if you cannot see this person for 6 months, 9 months straight, and all you can do is talk to them on the phone, you are going to really get to know whether or not this is someone you're compatible with. Because you can't fake the funk for 9 months straight on the phone every day, right? And if you get off the phone and you just talk to them for 3 hours and you can't wait to get back on the phone with them again, then there's definitely something there. So I just think that, you have to put in the time and you can't, if anything, you can't have sex with somebody that you can't see. So if anything, kept us pure, kept us, well, I guess you can. Sort of, you know what I'm saying. Like it helped us. It helped us to stay pure because it's like I can't touch you. You're way over there. So,
and obviously I don't have the experience of traveling, like an athlete does. But I do think at the same time we're again a firm belief that long distance relationships can work. But I think the second thing, particularly as a person's prayer life begins to develop, is to ask the question. God, I may move around from state to state, from country to country, but where's headquarters? Where is the place that I'm going to set up and build my life? And I would, if God were to reveal that to you, then that's how I would start building security in my life. I would build in the state or in the country that you feel like God is telling you this is where you're going to be either at the end of your career or this is where you'll be for a large portion of your career.
That's an excellent answer because that's one of the main things you're trying to figure out when you are playing. Am I going to live? Most people live where they went to college. Professionally, a lot of people live where they play professionally. So that's something to keep in mind for sure.
When I came here to Phoenix, this was my third state that I lived in, and from Michigan to Ohio to here, from Michigan to Ohio, I was in every assignment that I was ever given for almost 2 years.
You did Georgia as well.
Oh, and I did Georgia. Yeah, I did Georgia
there.
as well. And then when I got to Arizona, because of my history, I got here thinking to myself, I'm only going to be here about 2 years and then I'm moving to the next spot. And then the Lord spoke to me and said to me, this is headquarters. When God said to me, this is headquarters, there's a lot that he said in that one statement. Number one, he said, this is where I'll begin to build. Number two, what he said is this isn't the only place that you'll be, but this is the place that you'll always come back to and call home. And that has now almost 20 years later, this is headquarters, but we do believe we'll plant works and we'll do things in other states, but this will always be the place that we call home.
I'm walking blind. I'm a soldier. Try not to lose. Try to step